Megan never thought one quiet Wednesday night would flip her entire life upside down. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't the kind of woman who stirred chaos just to feel alive. She worked. She paid bills. She minded her business. Life, for her, was simple. Even when it hurt. Lancaster Grill wasn't a dream job. Not even close. It was one of those places where the coffee tasted burnt no matter how fresh the pot was, where the AC rattled in the summer, and the lights hummed in the winter. A small, worn-down diner between a gas station and an old laundromat. But it paid rent, and that was enough. The air always smelled like a mix of grease, tired coffee, and something sweet the cooks could never quite identify. Megan had gotten used to it. For 3 long years, she had shown up, tied her apron, plastered a smile, and served whoever walked through the door, whether they respected her, ignored her, or looked straight through her like she wasn't even there. She swallowed insults, jokes, disrespect, and the occasional brush-off because she needed the paycheck. Her younger brother needed textbooks, her mother needed help, and Megan needed to survive. But survival had a cost, and tonight she was about to pay it. The dinner rush had ended. The clatter of plates faded. Megan wiped down the counter while Beth scrolled on her phone, and Jason flirted loudly with another server. The diner felt half asleep, the kind of slow night Megan usually appreciated. Then the bell above the door jingled. An older black man stepped inside. His clothes were clean, but simple. He carried himself like someone who had lived long enough to know when a room welcomed him, and when it didn't. And Lancaster Grill did not welcome him. Beth didn't look up. Jason glanced once, just enough to make eye contact, then turned back to his conversation like nothing and no one had entered. No greeting. No smile. Not even a nod. Just silence. Thick, uncomfortable, deliberate. Megan felt the shift immediately. It was subtle but unmistakable. An unspoken message hung in the air. He's not worth our time. And she hated that more than anything. She wanted to keep her head down, the way she usually did. It always protected her. But the man stood there patiently, respectfully, as if he was giving everyone a silent chance to prove him wrong. So Megan took a breath and stepped forward. "Good evening, sir," she said softly, her voice warm. "Just you tonight?" The man nodded, and the tension in his shoulders released just a little. "Yes, ma'am." She led him to a booth near the window, grabbed fresh coffee, and poured it herself. She didn't look at Beth or Jason. She didn't need to. She could feel their eyes, feel the judgment, feel the annoyance. But she didn't care. "What's good here?" the man asked with genuine curiosity. "The grilled salmon," she answered with a smile. "Trust me." He chuckled, a real, sincere sound. "Then grilled salmon it is." As she walked back to place the order, she heard Beth's voice, sharp, mocking. "She's wasting her time." Megan clenched her jaw, but kept walking. She didn't know this man, but she knew dignity, and she refused to let anyone strip his away tonight. When she returned with a refill, the man looked up at her thoughtfully. "You the only one working tonight?" he murmured. Megan followed his gaze. Beth showed no sign of working. Jason leaned against the counter, pretending to wipe a clean spot. Tom, the manager, peeked out from his office, then disappeared again, as if avoiding responsibility was his full-time job. "Feels like it sometimes," she said quietly. The man nodded knowingly. Thought so. Something in the way he said it lingered in Megan's mind, but she didn't ask. She simply did her job, the right way, even when everyone around her did the opposite. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that tonight was being watched, measured, evaluated, and her choice, her simple act of kindness, would ignite a storm she never saw coming. The next morning, Megan stepped into the diner with her stomach twisted into knots. Something felt wrong. The air felt different. Heavy. Beth stood stiff at the counter, eyes already locked on her. Jason crossed his arms and smirked like he'd been waiting for this moment all night. Megan barely had a second to breathe before Tom's voice called from the office door. "Megan, come with me." Her heart dropped. Tom didn't sit. He didn't greet her. He didn't pretend to care. "We're letting you go," he said flatly. Megan just stared. "What?" "It's not working out," he repeated, eyes cold. "I've worked here for almost 3 years," she whispered. "I've never missed a shift. I've never—" "It's a decision we've made." We. She knew exactly who that meant. This wasn't laziness. This wasn't performance. This was retaliation. Megan swallowed the burn in her throat. "This is because I served him, isn't it?" Tom didn't answer. He didn't need to. Her apron trembled in her hand as she untied it. She placed it on the chair, walked past Beth's smirk and Jason's quiet satisfaction, and stepped outside into the cold morning air. 3 years of loyalty, gone. 3 years of patience, worthless. 3 years of kindness, punished. She sat in her car, gripping the wheel, breathing hard as tears threatened to spill. How would she pay rent? How would she help her brother? How would she survive? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something urged her to answer. "Hello?" she whispered. A calm, deep voice responded. "Megan, this is Richard Lawson." She blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" "The man you served last night." Her heartbeat stumbled. "I heard what happened," he continued. Megan closed her eyes, humiliation washing over her. "Yeah, well, maybe I should have just ignored you like everyone else." A beat of silence. Then, "That's exactly why I'm calling." Her eyes opened, because this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The world slowed for a moment as Megan held the phone against her ear. Richard Lawson. The quiet man from last night. The man everyone ignored. The man she treated like a human being while her coworkers acted like he was invisible. She hadn't expected to ever hear his voice again. She definitely hadn't expected him to know what happened. "Mr. Lawson, how did you even get my number?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I asked," he replied simply. "Some people talk a little too much when they think no one's listening." Her breath hitched. Of course. Beth, Jason, someone must have bragged. They probably thought it was funny, firing her for breaking the unspoken rule. Megan felt a bitter taste creep up her throat. "I'm sorry for whatever trouble they caused you," he added gently. "But I assure you, none of this is your fault." Megan let her head fall back against the seat. "It feels like it is." "Well," he said softly, "I'd like to change that." Something about his tone made Megan sit up straight. Calm, kind, but there was something else there too. Authority. "Megan, I want to meet with you," he said. "Meet with me?" she repeated, confused. "Why?" "Because after what I saw last night, and after what happened this morning, I think you deserve to hear something that might change the situation." Her pulse quickened. "Change? How?" "You'll find out soon, if you're willing." She hesitated. Not because she didn't trust him. Strangely, she did. But because she was tired, exhausted, fired, humiliated. The last thing she expected was an older stranger trying to help her. "What exactly do you want from me?" she murmured cautiously. "Absolutely nothing," he assured her, "except 10 minutes of your time. 10 minutes. She had nothing left to lose. "Okay," she said finally. "Where do you want to meet?" I'm already outside, he said. Her heart stopped. What? Step out of your car, he repeated softly. I'm parked across from you. Megan slowly turned her head, her pulse pounding. A dark sedan sat under a tree across the lot, sleek and polished enough to look out of place in front of the diner. The passenger side window lowered smoothly. And there he was, Richard Lawson. Calm, quiet, observing her with eyes that held stories she couldn't begin to guess. Megan hung up and stepped out of her car slowly, half praying she didn't look as shaken as she felt. Richard walked toward her, hands folded in front of him, posture steady and composed. Did you follow me? She asked nervously. No, he said with a faint smile. I came to confirm something. Then, what? Confirm what? That you're the same person this morning as you were last night. She frowned. What does that even mean? It means, he said warmly, that kindness shouldn't cost someone their livelihood. Her eyes softened. She didn't realize how much she needed to hear that until now. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black card. I'd like you to come work for me, he said. Her mouth fell open. Work for you? Doing what? Serving coffee? Filing papers? I don't understand. I run a team, he said. A specialized operations division. We handle logistics, analysis, field coordination, many things. She blinked. You're offering me a job just like that? No, he said gently. I'm offering you the chance for an interview. Her stomach twisted again, this time with a mixture of disbelief and hope. Hope. She hadn't felt that in years. But why me? She whispered. He studied her for a long moment before answering. Because I pay attention. Last night, you didn't just take my order. You treated me with dignity in a room that refused to do the same. You didn't judge me. You didn't hesitate. You didn't ask who I was or what I could offer you. You simply did what was right. Megan swallowed hard. That's just basic human decency. Exactly, he replied, and that's rarer than you think. She looked down at the card in her hand, embossed lettering, heavy, professional. But what stunned her most wasn't the title. It was the emblem in the corner, a national seal. One she had seen online, in documentaries, in federal reports. Her hands shook. You're with the government? She whispered. Richard's expression didn't change. Something like that. She looked up at him with wide eyes. And you want me working for you? I want good people working for me, he said softly. You're one of them. Her throat tightened. She covered her mouth with her hand as tears pricked the corners of her eyes. Why did you even come to the diner last night? She asked suddenly. Richard hesitated, the first time she had seen him falter. I needed to see something, he said quietly, and I saw it. What? She whispered. That truth has a way of revealing people. Some reveal ugliness, some reveal strength. She couldn't breathe for a second. And Megan, he added with a small nod, you revealed strength. The wind shifted, brushing her hair across her face. She blinked away tears, trying to steady her voice. When is the interview? She finally asked. Now, he said. Her heart thudded. Now? As in, right now? He shrugged lightly. It's mostly a conversation, a simple one. She let out a shaky breath. Okay, I'll do it. Richard smiled, gently, stepping aside so she could walk with him. But before she could take a step, a familiar voice sliced through the air from behind her. Well, Beth sneered loudly from the diner entrance, arms folded, eyes filled with venom. Look who came crawling back and brought some random old man with her. Jason snickered behind her, leaning in the doorframe, with his arms crossed. Megan froze. Richard didn't even turn. He kept his eyes forward. Beth continued. You didn't learn your lesson, did you? Maybe we need to teach it again. Megan's pulse hammered. Richard finally turned his head, just a fraction. His voice was low, calm, but terrifyingly steady. Megan, he said, before we go, would you like to handle this yourself? She stared at him, at the diner, at the people who humiliated her, and something inside her clicked. This wasn't just an interview. This was a moment, a choice, a test. And Megan was done being silent. She stepped forward, ready to speak, ready to face them, ready to rise. Megan's hands trembled, but not from fear this time. For the first time in a long time, the shaking came from something else. Heat rising under her skin, a pulse pounding in her ears, a voice inside of her finally shouting, enough. She turned to face Beth. The morning sun hit the glass doors of the diner, casting hard reflections across Beth's face. Behind her, Jason leaned against the frame, smirking like he was watching a comedy show. Two customers at a nearby table pressed against the window, pretending not to stare, while very obviously watching every second. Megan took a slow step forward. Crawling back, she repeated, her voice steady, surprisingly clear. I didn't come back for you. Beth scoffed. Please, you got fired, sweetheart. That means you come back when we say you can. Or did you forget how this works? Jason chuckled, low and cruel. Maybe she thought we'd say sorry because she got her feelings hurt. Megan's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away this time. Richard watched quietly from her side, hands still calmly folded in front of him. He didn't interfere. He didn't tell her what to say. He simply stood there like a silent wall of support, letting her choose. Megan inhaled deeply. For 3 years, she said, I did every double shift, every holiday, every late night. I cleaned your messes, covered your tables, took your rude customers, and never once complained. And the one time I treat someone like a basic human being, I'm fired? Beth rolled her eyes. He was making people uncomfortable. He was eating dinner, Megan shot back. Jason lifted his hands defensively. All we did was remind you what kind of customers this place wants. We didn't tell Tom to fire you. Oh, come on, Megan said. You don't have to say the words when you've been saying them every day with your attitude. Beth stepped forward, jabbing a finger at her. You got fired, she snarled. Take the hint. Go cry to someone else. Megan stared at that finger, and for a second, a memory surfaced. Her mother, exhausted after a double shift at her own job, telling Megan as a teenager, one day, you'll have to choose between swallowing disrespect and standing up for yourself. Just be ready for the cost when you do. This was the cost. Megan lifted her chin. You know what? She said quietly. Thank you. Beth blinked. For what? Kicking you out? For showing me exactly what kind of place this is, Megan replied. For making it easy to walk away. Jason laughed. Walk away to where? Another minimum wage job. Good luck with that. Megan's lips curved up just slightly. You really want to know where I'm going? She asked. Beth crossed her arms. Enlighten us. Megan glanced back at Richard for just half a second. He gave the smallest nod, permission to reveal nothing, or reveal everything. Her choice. She turned back to them, voice soft but firm. Anywhere that doesn't punish me for doing the right thing, she said, which is more than I can say for this place. Jason snorted. Yeah, well, good luck finding that. A voice from inside boomed across the lot. What's going on out here? Tom, he stepped outside, adjusting his cheap tie like he was the CEO of something important. Beth immediately slid into her favorite role, victim. We were just telling her she can't hang around the property after being terminated, Beth said. She brought some guy here to cause trouble. Tom's gaze shifted to Richard. He took in the calm posture, the expensive watch, the unbothered eyes. His brows furrowed slightly. Is that true? He asked Megan. You causing more problems? Richard's voice cut in before she could answer. No, he said, but I see plenty of problems already. Tom stiffened. And you are? Richard reached into his jacket, not quickly, not dramatically, just smoothly, and pulled out another black card. He held it out without ceremony. Tom took it, frowning down at the lettering. His face changed. Confusion to realization to discomfort. This is some kind of joke, right? Tom said weakly. It rarely is, Richard replied. Megan watched Tom's throat bob as he swallowed. Even Beth shifted uneasily now. Jason leaned forward, squinting at the card from a distance. Richard's tone stayed calm, almost casual. I was here last night, he said. I watched how your staff treated paying customers. I watched how they treated this woman when she did the job you hired them to do. I watched who stepped up and who disappeared into the back when it was time to offer basic service. His eyes hardened, not loud, not angry, but sharp. And this morning, he continued, I watched you fire the one person who actually did her job. Tom's eyes darted from the card to Richard's face. Look, sir, I don't know what Megan told you, but we have policies. We have expectations. What she did, Richard interrupted, was show integrity in the face of discrimination. What you did was reward that by cutting her loose. Beth scoffed. Discrimination? Oh, now you're just trying to make it sound dramatic. Nobody said anything racial. We just didn't want to serve. She snapped her mouth shut, but it was too late. The words hung there, heavy and ugly. Richard tilted his head slightly. You just didn't want to serve. Her cheeks flushed. I didn't mean it like that. Pause. Of course you did, he said gently. You just didn't intend to say it out loud. Pause. Tom looked like he wanted to sink into the pavement. Pause. We can fix this, he said, quickly. Megan, we can add you back on the schedule. Maybe I overreacted. There's no need for outside involvement. Megan stared at him. Just hours ago, he'd thrown her away like trash. Now, with one card in his hand and one powerful gaze on him, he wanted to take it back. Pause. She looked at Richard. He didn't say a word, because this wasn't his decision. It was hers. Megan inhaled slowly. No, she said. Pause. Tom blinked. What? I'm not coming back, she repeated softly. Not to this. Not to you. And people of course stared. Tom, she's really going to blow this. Megan stepped close enough for Tom to see every ounce of resolve in her eyes. I gave this place 3 years, she said. You gave me 30 seconds. I know my worth now. And it's more than whatever scraps of respect you feel like handing out. Richard finally broke the silence. Pause. Consider this a courtesy visit, he said. If anyone at this establishment decides to retaliate against Megan in any way, contact, harassment, trying to smear her reputation, or tampering with her employment prospects, I will personally ensure that every complaint, every witness statement, and every piece of camera footage from last night finds its way to the right people. Tom's face went pale. See, camera footage. Richard's gaze didn't waver. You have security cameras, he said. Use them honestly, or they'll be used for you. Beth's hands curled into fists. You can't just... You're right, Richard cut in calmly. I don't need to. The evidence already can. The parking lot felt frozen. Even the distant hum of traffic seemed to fade. Then Richard turned to Megan, his expression softening. "Ready?" he asked. She looked at the diner one last time, the cracked sign, the smudged windows, the doorway where she'd stood for countless shifts, pretending she didn't hear the whispered insults. She felt nothing but relief. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." They walked toward his car together. Megan could feel eyes burning into her back, but for the first time, their stares didn't cage her, they pushed her forward. The sedan's door closed with a quiet, expensive thud. She sank into the leather seat, still shaking slightly. Was all of that really necessary? She asked as Richard started the engine. "Yes," he replied simply, "for 2 reasons. Which are," he glanced at her. 1, to make sure they think twice before doing this to the next person. 2, to see how you handle pressure. She stared at him. "That was part of the interview?" He nodded. "And how did I do?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "You passed." Her chest tightened with something like disbelief and hope twisted together as they pulled out of the lot. Megan watched the diner shrink in the side mirror, its ugly power shrinking with it. Each passing foot of asphalt felt like a layer of weight peeling off her shoulders. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To my office," Richard said. "There's still more you need to know. About the job, about what we really do, and about why last night mattered more than you think." The city blurred around them. Shops, traffic lights, old brick buildings, new glass towers. Eventually, the car turned toward the part of town Megan rarely visited. The streets grew cleaner. The buildings taller. Names she'd only ever seen on the news passed by her window. They pulled up in front of a sleek, mirrored building with subtle security cameras and no flashy logo. Just a discreet metal plaque with the same emblem she'd seen on his card. Her pulse hammered again. "This is," she whispered. Richard parked and looked at her seriously. "Megan," he said quietly, "before you walk through those doors, I need you to understand something." She turned to him, throat suddenly dry. "If you say yes to this," he continued, "your life won't go back to normal. You'll see things most people never know about. You'll carry secrets you can't share, make decisions you can't explain, and stand in rooms where doing the right thing is the hardest choice in the world." He held her gaze. "But I saw you choose what was right when no one was watching. That's why we're here. So I'll ask you once, and only once." He paused, letting the quiet settle between them. "Do you still want to walk in?" Megan looked at the building, at her reflection in the glass, at the woman who just lost a job and gained something she didn't even have a name for yet. Her heart raced, her mind screamed. But her answer was simple. She placed her hand on the door handle. "Yes," she said softly, "I do." And she stepped out into a new world. The lobby felt like stepping into another world. Not the kind of office Megan was used to. Cheap carpet, flickering lights, the smell of burnt coffee drifting from a break room. This place was silent in a way she'd never heard before. The air hummed faintly, like the building itself was alive. The floor was polished stone, smooth enough to reflect the ceiling lights. The walls were clean, sharp, modern, but with no company posters, no slogans, no smiling stock photos. Just a minimalist design that somehow made everything more intimidating. A receptionist sat behind a curved desk of dark glass, but she wasn't scrolling her phone or blowing gum. Her posture was straight, her expression composed, her suit crisp. When she looked up, her gaze flicked from Richard to Megan with immediate recognition. "Good morning, Mr. Hale," she said, tone respectful, but not afraid. "Conference room 3 is prepared." Megan blinked. Prepare for what? For who? Richard gave a small nod. Thank you, Alice. And the director? In his office, she replied. He asked to be notified when you arrive. Megan swallowed. Richard Hale had a director above him? What kind of place was this? Alice typed something into her monitor. But Megan noticed something strange. There were no logos on anything. Not on the computer. Not on the desk. Not even on the keycards hanging from thin lanyards. Everything was plain, blank, and somehow more suspicious because of it. Richard motioned for Megan to follow him, and they entered a long hallway lined with glass walls. Behind each pane were glimpses of people working. Some dressed like regular office staff, others in tactical gear, and some in clothes that didn't match at all, like they were ready to disappear into a crowd. Megan slowed her steps. You okay? Richard asked quietly. I'm trying to understand what this place is, she whispered. You're not supposed to understand it yet, he said. All you need to know is you deserve to be here. His reassurance should have helped, but Megan's palms still felt sweaty. They stopped outside a room with no sign on the door. Richard used a badge to unlock it, and the door clicked open. Inside was a conference room, but not like the ones Megan had cleaned in her old job. The table was sleek chrome, the chairs ergonomic, with no scratches or stains, and the screens on the wall glowed with maps and scrolling encrypted data. Megan stepped inside slowly. Sit anywhere, Richard said, walking to the head of the table. She sat, carefully, like the chair might reject her. Richard placed a folder in front of her. Her heart thudded. On the front was her name, just her name. No logo, no department, no title, just Megan Carter. He sat across from her. Before anything else, he said, I need you to know what you did yesterday wasn't just kindness. Megan frowned. Then what was it? Instinct, Richard said. The right one. One we test for in dozens of ways, and you showed it naturally. Megan shifted uncomfortably. But I wasn't being tested. I was just doing what I thought was right. Exactly, he replied. Which is the point. He tapped the folder. Open it. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it open. The first page nearly made her stop breathing. It wasn't a resume. It wasn't a form. It was a full profile. Her age, birthday, address. Jobs she'd worked that she never even listed online. School records from when she was 11. Photos from the diner she didn't know were taken. A knot formed in her stomach. Why do you have all this? Richard leaned forward, elbows on the table. Because people don't get here by accident, he said. Megan stared at him, confusion turning into unease. You were watching me? She whispered. We monitor the movements of certain individuals, Richard said carefully. People who show qualities we need. You were flagged months ago. Yesterday confirmed the pattern. A pattern, she repeated. He nodded. Standing up for others, acting under pressure, taking responsibility even when no one asks you to. And believing people deserve fairness, even when they can't demand it. Her throat tightened. Is that really so rare? She asked softly. Rare enough, Richard said, and rarer still in the people who are strong enough to act on it. She looked back down at the file, feeling exposed, like she was sitting in front of an X-ray machine. So this is why you offered me a job? She asked. Because you track people like this? Richard didn't answer immediately. Instead, he clasped his hands on the table, expression steady. We don't track people, he said slowly. We identify potential, and we cultivate it. Megan swallowed. Cultivated for what? Before he could answer, the door opened. Megan turned and froze. A tall man with silver hair and eyes sharp enough to cut glass, stepped into the room. He wore a simple black suit, nothing flashy, but he carried himself with an authority that filled the space instantly. Richard stood. "Director," he said respectfully, "thank you for coming." So this was the man above Richard. The director's gaze moved to Megan. She felt like he saw everything. Her thoughts, her fear, her doubts, her heartbeat. "Megan Carter," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, controlled. "We've been waiting to meet." Megan nodded weakly, unsure what to say. He approached the table and placed a thin tablet in front of her. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. "A tablet?" she said uncertainly. He tapped the screen. A video feed appeared. Her breath caught. It was the diner. The exact moment Beth shoved Richard's plate away. Another tap. The angle shifted. Different camera. Another tap. Yet another angle. The director clasped his hands behind his back. "This is last night." Every second. Megan stared at the screens, her face shocked. Beth's disgust, Jason's sneer, Richard sitting patiently. Then Megan stepping forward, trembling, but standing her ground. Her chest felt tight. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered. "Because," the director said, "this moment told us everything we needed to know." Megan looked up at him, confused. Richard spoke quietly, from across the table. "This job requires more than strength," he said. "More than intelligence. More than bravery." The director nodded. "It requires conscience," he said, "the kind that can't be taught." He leaned closer. "You stood your ground against injustice," he said. "Not because you wanted to impress anyone. Not because it benefited you. But because you could not walk away." Megan felt her eyes sting. "I didn't do anything special," she murmured. The director shook his head, slowly. "That's where you're wrong." He tapped the tablet again, and now the footage showed something else. Jason, after Megan left, laughing, mocking her. Beth joining in. Tom shrugging like he'd done nothing wrong. Then, something Megan didn't expect. A brief look on Richard's face. Not anger, not disappointment, but recognition. The director pointed at that frame. "This," he said, "is when he knew." Megan blinked back tears. The director straightened. "Megan," he said, "we are not asking you to join a company. We are asking you to choose a path, a demanding one, a dangerous one at times, but one that protects the people who cannot protect themselves." She felt her heart drop, hard. "Dangerous?" Richard watched her carefully. "You won't be sweeping floors," he said softly. "You'll be gathering intel, running operations, managing information that shapes outcomes for countless lives." Her head spun. "Me?" she whispered. "Why me?" The director's voice lowered. "Because integrity without courage is useless, and courage without integrity is dangerous." He paused. "You have both." Megan pressed her palms to the table, trying to steady her breath. This wasn't a job. It was something bigger. Something she wasn't sure she was ready for. Richard studied her expression. "You don't need to decide today," he said gently. But the director shook his head once. "No, she does." Megan looked between them. Her old life felt 1,000 miles away. But this felt like standing on the edge of something enormous. Her voice wavered. "What happens if I say yes?" Richard answered quietly. "Then your real training begins." For a long moment, Megan didn't speak. Her hands lay flat on the cold chrome table, her pulse beating against her palms. She could hear it. Steady, scared, but strangely sure. She took a slow breath, then lifted her eyes to Richard and the director. "Okay," she whispered. "Tell me, what does training mean? What am I actually walking into?" Richard leaned back slightly, folding his hands. The director remained standing, quiet and observant, his presence filling the room like a shadow cast by something far larger than the building itself. "Megan," Richard began, "the work we do deals with people. Real people. Not enemies on a battlefield. Not criminals hiding behind masks. People you see every day. Neighbors, coworkers, strangers in a cafe. People who affect systems, communities, and sometimes much more." Megan's brow tightened. "What does that mean?" The director tapped the tablet, switching images. This time, it wasn't the diner. It was a series of profiles, blurred faces, redacted names, coded markings. "These," he said, "are individuals connected to ongoing investigations, suspicious activity, intercepted threats, internal corruption. We monitor patterns, behavior, movement, choices, human signals." Richard nodded. "Our division is not about force. It's about truth. We identify it. We expose it. We protect those who stand for it." Megan swallowed. "And where do I fit into that?" "Intel coordination," Richard said. "Field interpretation, behavioral reading, communication analysis. You'd learn how to spot deception, how to understand motives, how to see what others overlook. You noticed everything at that diner, things you didn't even realize you were noticing." The director stepped closer. "You have instincts," he said, "the kind you can't teach." Megan exhaled slowly. The weight of his words felt heavy, but not crushing, more like armor she never asked for, but might desperately need. "So what's step one?" she asked. Richard exchanged a glance with the director, a short, subtle exchange that meant something she couldn't decode. "Step one," Richard said carefully, "is understanding who you are." Before she could ask what he meant, the door behind them opened and another woman stepped inside. She was tall, elegant, wearing a black blazer and slacks. Her hair was tied in a smooth bun, and she carried a tablet under her arm. Her expression was neutral, not welcoming, not cold, just unreadable. "This is Agent Rivera," Richard said. "She oversees orientation and psychological assessment." Megan stiffened. "Assessment?" Rivera gave a polite smile. "Nothing invasive. Think of it like understanding how your mind works under pressure." Her voice was smooth, calm, oddly soothing. The director nodded toward her. "She'll handle the first phase." Richard rose from his seat. "Don't worry," he said gently. "It's not a test you can fail. It's just a baseline." Megan stood, though her legs felt slightly unsteady. "Do I go with her now?" Rivera nodded. "If you're ready." Megan took a breath. She was ready. Or maybe she wasn't. But she stepped forward anyway. The hallway outside the conference room felt longer now, quieter. Like each footstep echoed into something unknown. Rivera walked beside her with calm, measured strides. "Your team seems intense," Megan said softly. Rivera smiled faintly. "We're selective. The work requires it." "What do you actually do?" Megan asked. Rivera glanced at her. "We prevent small things from becoming large things." Megan blinked. "That's intentional," Rivera replied. They turned a corner, passing a glass wall that revealed a room where people spoke quietly over monitors glowing with maps and encrypted data streams. "But if you're here, Rivera said gently. It means you're capable of understanding far more than you think. They arrived at a room with a frosted glass door. Rivera opened it and gestured inside. Megan stepped in. It wasn't what she expected. No interrogation lights, no cold metal tables, no intimidating tech. Instead, it looked like a quiet office, soft lighting, 2 chairs, and a low table between them. A whiteboard on the wall, a small plant in the corner. Peaceful, almost therapeutic. Rivera closed the door gently behind them. Sit wherever you like, she said. Megan chose the chair facing the door, an instinct she didn't understand until she noticed Rivera noticing it. You like having a clear exit, Rivera observed. Megan frowned. Is that bad? No, Rivera said, sitting across from her. It's awareness. Some people sit with their backs to the door without thinking. Some don't. You did. That tells me something. What does it tell you? Megan asked. That you don't like being blindsided. Megan looked down at her hands. You'd be surprised how often that's happened. Rivera tapped her tablet. Not anymore. Not here. A quiet warmth flickered in Megan's chest. Rivera set the tablet aside and picked up a small object from the table. A card with ink blots. Megan raised a brow. You're kidding. Rivera smiled. Not the kind you're thinking of. This is a perception test. I want to see what your instincts pick up first. She held up the first card. A pattern of dark shapes with sharp edges. What do you see? Rivera asked. Megan squinted. A bird. No, wings, or maybe a mask. Rivera nodded. Why those? I don't know, Megan said honestly. Just feels defensive, protective, maybe burdened. Rivera wrote something down. She held up a second card. This one's softer shapes, almost cloud-like. And this? Megan hesitated. 2 people leaning on each other. Why? They look connected, she said softly. Like they need each other to stand. Rivera's eyes warmed. She held up a third card. Chaotic, scattered shapes. Megan took longer this time. This one feels broken, she said. Broken, Rivera repeated. What about it feels that way? The pieces don't line up. Megan murmured. It's like someone tried to fit them together, but didn't know how. Rivera lowered the card. And what would you do with pieces like that? She asked. Try to understand where they go, Megan said quietly. And if I can't, I'd at least try to make sure none of them get lost. Rivera nodded slowly, thoughtfully. You see patterns, she said. Not threats, not chaos. Not problems. Patterns. Megan didn't know if that was good. But Rivera smiled. A real smile. And for the first time, Megan felt like she wasn't being evaluated. She was being discovered. Rivera set the cards aside. One last question, she said, and answer honestly. Megan nodded. If you had walked away last night, Rivera said softly, if you had ignored Richard like everyone else, would you be here today? Megan shook her head slowly. No, I don't think I would. Then understand this, Rivera said gently. The moment you treated someone with dignity, the moment you refused to be silent, that moment brought you here. Megan felt her throat tighten, emotion rising unexpectedly. You're not here by accident, Rivera continued. And you're not here because you're perfect. You're here because you're consistent. You act from conscience, not convenience. Megan swallowed hard. Is that really enough for this job? Rivera leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. It's everything. Megan exhaled shakily. For the first time since she entered the building, she believed she might belong here. Rivera stood. That concludes phase 1, she said. Phase 2 starts now. Megan tensed. Phase 2? Rivera walked to the door and opened it. Two men in dark suits waited outside. Not threatening, but serious, alert. Rivera looked at her with steady eyes. "You're about to meet the rest of your team," she said, "and when you do, you'll learn the real reason Richard was at your diner last night." A chill ran through Megan's spine. "What reason?" she whispered. Rivera's expression softened, but her words were heavy. "There's a case," she said, "a dangerous one, and whether you realize it or not, you're already part of it." Megan's heart stopped. "What kind of case?" she breathed. Rivera stepped aside, motioning her into the hallway. "The kind," she said, "that begins with someone being watched." Megan froze. "Watched," she repeated. "Watched who?" Rivera held her gaze for a long, quiet moment. Then she answered, "You." Megan felt the world tilt beneath her, fear, confusion, disbelief flooding her at once. She wasn't here because of the diner. She wasn't here by chance. She was here because someone had been watching her long before yesterday, and now the truth was coming for her. Megan's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she thought she misheard Rivera. She stood frozen in the hallway, framed between two agents she didn't know and a truth she wasn't ready for. Rivera waited patiently, giving her time, not to calm down, but to absorb the weight of what had been said. "Someone was watching me?" Megan repeated, her voice unsteady. Rivera nodded once. "Yes." "Why?" Megan whispered. "I'm nobody. I'm not even important." Rivera said quietly, "You'd be surprised how often the wrong people decide someone is important." Rivera said quietly, the words landed in Megan's chest like a cold hand closing around her heartbeat. They began walking down the hallway, the agents behind her, Rivera in front, and Megan felt trapped between answers she didn't have and answers she might not want. They passed more glass rooms, more people, some typing quietly, some arguing into headsets, some watching screens whose content looked too complicated, too dangerous, too secret for her to even understand. Every now and then, someone looked at her just long enough for her to feel it, then quickly looked away. Rivera finally stopped at a door marked with nothing. Not a word, not a number, not even a symbol. She opened it. Inside was a dim room with a single long screen covering an entire wall. A man stood in front of it, hands behind his back. When he turned, Megan recognized him, the director. Her pulse jumped. Rivera motioned toward the center of the room. "Stand here." Megan stepped forward, nerves crawling up her spine. The director pressed a button. The giant screen blinked to life. At first, it was static. Then the image sharpened, and Megan felt her stomach drop through the floor. It was footage of her apartment building, from across the street. Zoomed, clean, slow. A chill crept up her neck. "That's my place," Megan whispered. The director didn't respond. The footage shifted. Now it was her, walking home late from the diner, shoulders tense, keys in her hand, checking over her shoulder. Another angle, her opening her mailbox. Another, her at the bus stop. Another, her leaving her shift 2 nights ago. Her throat tightened painfully. "Who filmed this?" she whispered. "Ooh, who has been watching me?" The director pressed another button. A silhouette appeared, a grainy figure sitting in a car a block from her building. Another angle showed him standing near the payphone outside the gas station. Another caught him looking at the diner entrance. Always from far away. Always blurred. Always watching her. Megan's knees weakened. Rivera stepped closer, as if ready to catch her if she fell. "You're safe here," she said softly. "No one is going to hurt you." Megan shook her head. "Why would anyone follow me? I don't have enemies. I don't have money. I don't." The director turned toward her fully. "You're being targeted," he said. The words hit her like a physical blow. Megan took a step back. Targeted? By who? For what? I don't even know anyone who... You don't have to know them, the director said. Sometimes being observed isn't about who you are, but who you remind someone of. Her breathing grew shallow. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why me? What did I do?" Richard's voice came from the doorway. "You were in the wrong place," he said softly. "At the wrong time." Megan spun toward him. He stood leaning against the frame. Face serious, eyes heavy with something almost like regret. "What does that mean?" she demanded. Richard walked closer, slow and steady. "2 weeks ago, someone made a drop in the alley behind your building." "A drop?" she echoed. "A package," he said. "Controversial documents, sensitive data. Someone filmed the drop." "And you think I did it?" she snapped, anger and fear mixing in her voice. "No," Richard said quickly. "We know you didn't, but someone else doesn't." The director tapped again. This time, the footage zoomed in on a blurry figure walking down the alley. Megan gasped. The figure was wearing the same green jacket she owned. The same dark jeans, the same hair length, the same build. From the back, it could have been her. Her chest tightened painfully. "No," she whispered. "That's not me." "That's? We know," the director said calmly. "But whoever made this footage either didn't know that or didn't care." The scene changed again. Now it was the same blurry figure, but filmed from behind dumpsters. Same jacket, same height, same hair, same build. "Someone is impersonating you," Richard said. Megan's vision blurred with fear. "No," she said again, almost pleading. "Why? Why would anyone want to look like me?" Richard exchanged a glance with the director. Rivera stepped forward, voice soft but steady. "Because," she said, "you live in a location that person needed access to. Because you walk alone at night. Because you blend into the world. Because you don't attract attention." Megan swallowed hard. "Because," Rivera continued, "you were the perfect cover." Megan sank into the nearest chair, hands covering her face. Her chest felt tight, suffocating. "So someone out there," she whispered, "used my image to hide what they were doing?" Rivera knelt beside her. "Yes." "And now they think it was me?" Megan asked weakly. The director folded his hands behind his back. "We intercepted discussions," he said. "People looking for the girl in the green jacket." Megan's heartbeat thundered. Rivera lowered her voice. "And those people are not police." A cold tremor shook her. She wiped tears from her cheeks, though she didn't remember when they started falling. "So what now?" she whispered. "What do I do?" Richard crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes. "Now," he said, "you let us protect you." Megan's breath shook. "Protect me? How?" "By making sure you're not blindsided again," Richard said. "By training you to read situations before they happen. By giving you the tools to defend yourself, mentally, physically, and tactically." The director stepped closer. "And by helping us find the person who copied you." Megan's spine stiffened. "Me? Yes," the director said. "Because whoever impersonated you watched you first, studied you, followed your routine, and you might recognize something we can't." Her pulse hammered. She felt terrified, exhausted. But something inside her, something small, buried but fierce, flickered. Anger. Not at Richard, not at the director, not at the agency. At whoever did this, at whoever risked her life, stole her image, used her as a shadow. She lowered her hands and looked up, not confused this time, determined. "What do you need me to do?" she whispered. Richard straightened slowly. Part of the reason we brought you here, he said, is because you handled injustice with courage. He held her gaze. Now we ask you to handle something far more dangerous. Megan swallowed. Show me, she said. Show me everything. Firstly, the director turned to the screen. Then, let's begin. The lights dimmed inside the operations room, and every screen came alive at once. Maps, timelines, blurred faces, surveillance stills, movement charts, patterns Megan never would have recognized a day ago, but now, after everything she had seen, they felt like pieces she was meant to assemble. The director stepped aside, giving her an unobstructed view. This, he said quietly, is the sequence of events that began 2 weeks ago. The first image appeared on the central screen, the alley behind her apartment. Someone walking briskly, hood up, shoulders hunched, face hidden. Green jacket, dark jeans, her build, her movement, her silhouette. Megan's stomach twisted, but she forced herself to watch. Richard moved closer to the screen and pointed to the upper corner. This is the subject's pattern of movement, in and out, never lingering more than 40 seconds. The footage zoomed in. The person's face turned slightly toward the camera, just enough for Megan to see the difference. The jawline was sharper, the step more intentional, the posture colder. That's not me, she whispered. They don't walk like me. Rivera nodded. Exactly. Behaviorally, they're different. But visually, from a distance, they pass. What were they carrying? Megan asked. The director clicked again. Another angle. This time, the figure slipped something into the corner of a dumpster. Not trash, but a small black pouch sealed with tape. That, the director said, is what we intercepted. The next image on the screen was a close-up, the pouch split open on an evidence table. Inside were documents, photos, a flash drive, and a printed list of coded coordinates. Megan stared. What is all of this? Pieces of an operation, Richard answered. Communication leaks. Internal vulnerabilities. Someone is gathering intel for outsiders. Someone on the inside. Megan's breath quickened. You think I'm connected to this somehow? No, Richard said firmly. You're not involved. But the person who used your appearance wanted us, and others, to be confused. They needed a face that wouldn't trigger suspicion. Rivera spoke quietly. Someone used your identity as camouflage. The screen shifted again. A new face appeared. Clear, sharp, cold. Megan's heart stopped. It was a woman, early 30s, sharp eyes, short hair, wearing the same green jacket, the same jeans, the same build. Rivera tapped the screen. This is the impersonator. She's a courier, skilled, discreet, dangerous. We believe she studied you for weeks before using your likeness. Megan leaned forward, staring at the woman's expression. Unreadable, calculated. Why me? She asked again, softer this time. Why would she pick me out of everyone in my building? Richard answered. Because you're invisible in the eyes of the world, he said gently. Not in a bad way. You're quiet. You move predictably. You mind your own business. People like that are ideal covers. Megan felt a sting in her chest. So I was just convenient. No, Rivera corrected. You were safe. She assumed you were harmless, unconnected, unimportant. Megan looked down, her voice trembling. Then why am I here? Why do you even need me? Richard turned her toward the next screen. Megan, because you saw her. Her head snapped up. What? When? So, Richard clicked again. A final piece of footage flickered onto the screen. A bus stop. Her bus stop. Late at night. Megan sat on the bench, exhausted. scrolling through her phone. And behind her, several feet away, the same woman in the green jacket stood with her back turned, pretending to look at the timetable. Megan gasped, her hand covering her mouth. That night, Richard said softly, she wasn't watching the bus. Rivera's voice was calm but grim. She was watching you. Megan's shoulders trembled. Her throat tightened until it burned. She stared at her own image on the screen, tired, unaware, totally unprotected, and rage flickered beneath her fear. How long was she there? She asked. 7 minutes. The director replied. She left right after you boarded the bus. Megan felt a wave crash against her chest. She wasn't just a silhouette to the impersonator. She was a blueprint, and she'd been used without even knowing it. Richard stepped beside her. Now you understand why we brought you in, he said gently. This isn't just a job. This became personal the moment she stood behind you. Megan's breath shook, but she nodded. She wasn't running. Not anymore. So what do you want me to do? She whispered. Tell me. The director finally spoke again. We need someone who can think like her, he said. Someone she studied. Someone she attempted to imitate. You have insight, we don't. Insight? Megan echoed. Rivera nodded. She followed you long enough to mimic your routine. That means somewhere along the way, she made a mistake. Something only you would notice. Megan stared at the screen. At the woman wearing her jacket, standing behind her bus stop, matching her build. The fear inside her didn't vanish, but it hardened into something sharper, something stronger. I'll help you find her, Megan said quietly. Whatever it takes. Richard smiled faintly, proud, relieved. That's all we needed to hear. The director pressed one final button. A new screen appeared, a map of the city. Red markers everywhere, and one blinking point labeled, Last sighting, unknown female. This, the director said, is where your work begins. Hours later, Megan stepped out of the building with Richard beside her. The sun was setting, casting the city in gold. Traffic hummed below. Life continued, unaware, untouched. But Megan wasn't the same woman who walked in. She was someone who had been watched and chosen. Someone who had been used and awakened. Someone who had been invisible until now. She turned to Richard. Do you really think I can do this? She asked. He looked at her. Not with doubt, not with pity, but with certainty. You already are, he said. A breeze blew past them, lifting her hair. Her chest rose slowly, quietly, as she exhaled for the first time without shaking. Then let's find her, Megan said. Richard nodded. We will. They began walking toward the car. A new world waiting in front of her. A dangerous one, a heavy one, but one she wasn't afraid of anymore. Because sometimes the most powerful people are the ones the world never bothered to notice. And Megan Carter was finally ready to be seen. Thank you for watching this powerful story. If it touched you, inspired you, or kept you hooked, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a new episode. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. See you in the next story, where justice always finds its way.